Still to come, we wrap up this RSL season with some of the best moments in Loyola athletics.
And as we come to a close this season, Jonathan Toews wraps up his time with the Blackhawks, and our reporters have the story.
I'm Vanesa Hoxha.
And I'm Chloe Morrissey.
All this and so much more.
Rambler Sports Locker begins now.
It's Friday. Finally. It's been a long week as students wrap up their final week of the spring semester, and I welcome you and thank you all for joining us for the final episode of this RSL season.
Well, Vanessa, I am so happy to have you here with me, along with all of our amazing crew here at RSL. A huge thank you to our executive producer, Gabbi, Lumma, and technical producer, Julie West, who make this show possible. We're so grateful to have this opportunity to put out a show each week, and we would like to take a moment to thank all of our viewers who continue to support us.
Also extending a thank you to RSL's advisors, Loyola's athletic department, coaches, and players for an amazing season.
Well, this episode is going to be filled with a lot of goodbyes and farewells, but also some new beginnings, so stick around. To all of our Packers fans, we begin by recognizing your biggest farewell, maybe ever. Rodgers has been traded and is now officially a part of the New York Jets. Rodgers spent 18 seasons with the Green Bay Packers. According to the NFL, from 2005 to 2023, Rodgers totaled just over 59,000 passing yards, 3,400 rushing yards, 88 fumbles, and 475 touchdowns. This also means that Rodgers is closing out his 24-5 record against the Bears. So this may mean that things are looking up for all of you Chicago fans out there.
100%, Chloe. We begin by tipping our hats off to the Chicago Blackhawks former captain.
That's right, Vanessa. Jonathan Toews led his team onto the ice for the last time as a Chicago Blackhawk. Toews capped off his 16th season here at home against the Philadelphia Flyers. RSL's Abbey Sileo has a recap of the unforgettable night.
Jonathan Toews' time with the Chicago Blackhawks is over after 15 seasons. On April 13th, General Manager Kyle Davidson announced that the Blackhawks will not renew Toews' contract, which expired at the end of the season. Toews scored in his final game as a Blackhawk that night. Toews became part of NHL history during his time in Chicago. The Blackhawks drafted Toews 3rd overall in 2006. He became captain at just 20 years old in 2008 and led his team to Stanley Cup victories in 2010, 2013, and 2015. His other accolades include 2 Olympic gold medals, the Conn Smythe Trophy, the Frank J. Selke Trophy, and the Mark Messier Leadership Award. In 2017, the NHL named him as one of the 100 greatest players in league history. Toews is the last player from the Dynasty era to end his time with the Blackhawks. Wherever his journey takes him, his impact on Chicago sports will never be forgotten. For Rambler Sports Locker, I'm Abbey Sileo.
Thanks, Abbey. Some truly remarkable news. As we mark the end of one era, we return to another. Ladies and gentlemen, Drip or Drown is back, and Lucas Kihmm is here to bring you all of the heat.
What is up, Sports Locker Nation? It's Lucas Kihmm here, finally bringing back a fan favorite segment called Drip or Drown, where I rank Loyola and professional athletes' attire on and off the field and decide if they're a drip or a drown. So let's get straight into it. Coming up first, we've got the Loyola women's golf team uniforms. As you can see, they're sporting their warm weather fit that looks absolutely fire in the sun. The maroon polo with the 5-inch inseam shorts or skirt is definitely in for the times. It ain't the early 2000s anymore. Come on. No one wears shorts beyond the knees. And wet way to top it off with the sophomores Kate Riesinger and Grace Sutter holding some hardware after placing 3rd in the championships. It's getting hot in her. They're definitely a drip in my opinion. Coming up at number 2, we got Chicago Cubs shortstop Dansby Swanson. What on God's green earth is happening here? To start off, we've got the yoga headband holding back the flow, then the snazzy blazer with a Cool Wick Cubs hoodie. To be honest, I understand that he's going for the business casual look, but this just isn't working out right now. For all the fellas out there who've dressed up before, you know this guy is sweating bullets in the double jacket right now. He is a drown. Finally, to wrap things up, we got the captain, the Taser. That's right, Chicago fans, it's Jonathan Toews from the Blackhawks. In his last game for the team, he came dressed to impress. A simple yet classy look, wearing the matching plum suit with the pocket square. Dansby, take some notes. Yeah, the smile's a little goofy, but we're talking about the tailor-made suit that makes him an absolute stud. Chicago's going to miss you, Cap. He gets my final approval of a drip. That's about it for Drip or Drown this time. For Rambler Sports Locker, I'm Lucas Kihmm.
Thanks, Lucas.
We have a very special guest here with us today, Professor Lee Hood, who is the winner of the School of Communications March Madness Bracket Pool. Faculty and staff participated in the event and all pitched in $5, which has been donated to our program. Professor Hood, you beat out everyone here in the SOC. What is your secret to success?
I think the secret is that there were so few people in the pool that I didn't have a huge amount of competition. My bracket was busted pretty early on, but obviously a lot of other people had their brackets busted as well.
Right. So if you think if there was a larger pool of people or a larger amount of people competing, you think you still would have won?
Oh, no. I have a feeling that, well, when I picked my teams, I really did try to pick some upsets because you know how March Madness is. It's a crazy event every year.
Right.
So I did try to pick some upsets. I'm sure I wouldn't have beat Sister Jean. You know, her pool is always amazing. So I think she follows basketball a little more closely than I do.
Probably, yes. Is this like the first time you've ever done a bracket for March Madness?
It's the first time I've done it in the School of Communication, but you know, to get the chance to support your program, how could I refuse?
Absolutely.
I thought that was just a really great opportunity to be a part of that. So I don't always do the March Madness bracket. Now my family and I always do the bowl games in December. And you know, some of those are ridiculous too, but we have different ways that we pick. My daughter likes to pick by the mascots, which mascot she likes better. So I tried to have a little more educated guess, but when a tournament is as crazy as this year's was, it really is hard to try to get anything very accurate.
Right. So with a background in sports reporting, do you think that helps you at all make your predictions or predict those upsets, like you said?
In a way, I mean, I certainly know a little bit about the different leagues and the different conferences, and but you know, if I had watched Purdue play this year, I had picked them to go really far. I think I might have picked them to even win. But then, you know, as a sports person, I thought to myself, you know, the team that upset them in the first round, all they did was isolate the big guy, right, and they didn't have any trouble. And I thought, gee, that wasn't that hard to figure out.
Right.
So, you know, I was, after I saw the strategy that the other team used, I thought, well, it's surprising that they did so well the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
My dad was a basketball coach, so I was really raised on
So you kind of had an
sports.
upper hand somehow, whether it was sports reporting or your dad. Well, everybody, this is Professor Hood. Thank you so much for joining us. Next, remember how I told you about some new beginnings? Here it is. William Bazzone fills in for Lucas Kihmm on the Ramble this week to discuss the new baseball rules.
Hey folks, and welcome back to the final ramble of this RSL season. I'm your host, William Bazzone, receiving the blessing from Lucas Kihmm to fill in. I'm here with Evan Nave and our new executive producer, Nate Keough. This week, we're going to answer the question that's got everybody talking. Major League Baseball instituted 3 new rules to speed up the pace of play in games this season. Restricted infield shifting, bigger bases to promote aggressive base running, and the new pitch clock. Just 1 week into the season, the average game speed fell down to its lowest since 1981, according to Deadspin. But as we know, there are baseball purists out there shaking their fists and expecting the sky to fall down as we get later into the season. So after about a month of baseball, I'm asking you guys, are the rules good or bad for the game itself? And Nate, since you're the new man in charge here, I'll start with you.
Yeah, Baz, I'm gonna defend these rules. I really think they've added to the game. Cutting the shorter game times, pitch clock is gonna be it's been the most effective rule, so I'm gonna start with that. But it really hasn't had that much of an impact when you think about it, to the point where it's affecting the game. Like when they tested it in AAA and the minors, it cut down game times by about 20 minutes. That's significant enough, but not enough to ruin the game, as these purists are claiming. And if the numbers were the same in 1981, are those purists who are around in 1981 going to complain about that season too? I don't think they are. So I just think it's good for the game. Encourages more younger audience to watch it as well, and that has been Commissioner Rob Manfred and the MLB's target audience. And then as for the other rules, the shift ban I don't think really does anything, so I can take it or leave it. I mean, the rules are hardly restrictive at all. Teams have found so many loopholes already in just the couple weeks around the shift rule, and outfield shifts are perfectly fine, which honestly I think are the more effective shifts when you think about it. I mean, the infield shifts are more noticeable, obviously, when you're at a game, but in terms of actually producing outs, the outfield shifts are what get it done. And you can still basically put up a man up the middle. They're trying to restrict that, but you can be 1 foot to either side of second base and you're perfectly fine, versus just standing in the middle. So personally, I think the only rule that really affects the game is the pitch clock, and I think it's beneficial.
Yep, very interesting point. Evan, we'll turn it over to you now.
Well, thank you. So I'm actually going to have to go with the purist concept. I feel that these new rules are limiting, especially with the pitch clock, because pitchers, they need more time, especially when they're about to throw. They need to analyze the environment. And also, some of them like to measure their throws before pitching. When you limit it to only 15 seconds, it puts a lot of pressure, it adds anxiety, and it may affect overall gameplay, and it may affect their pitches. I know I wouldn't want to be limited to only 15 seconds before I have to throw the ball.
Certainly a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it would give me a bunch of anxiety, and honestly, I believe that it would impact my performance.
Yeah, that makes sense. But Nate, I guess I'll ask you that question next. Evan brings up a good point. Like, if we only have like 15 seconds to pitch, right, or 20 seconds when they're on base, you know, you're speeding up the game. But do you think that's going to create different outcomes, or just kind of like the same uniform game 162 times this season?
I don't think that's going to create too many different outcomes. I haven't really seen many pitch clock violations. I've already been to 2 games this year. I went to White Sox opening day, and then I was at the Cubs game the other night,
right.
Loyola night.
Of course.
There was been 1 pitch clock violation across all those games, and it was an automatic ball, I think, at the Cubs game the other night, just to make the count 1-0. I don't think the punishments are that restrictive unless you're in a 2-strike count. And also, I think the important thing to note is that it's not 15 seconds to throw the ball, it's 15 seconds to start your motion. I think that's where a lot of people have a problem with, because if a pitcher is starting his motion and then gets a pitch clock violation, that's a problem. He could really hurt himself. He could get distracted, he could plant his foot wrong. So I think the key is it's really just starting the motion. If you just, if you get set and start the motion towards the plate with 1 second left and it runs out, you're fine. So I think it's a lot more time than people realize. And as you said, it's 20 seconds with runners on base, and that's where you feel more of the anxiety. When you have runners on, that's when there's more pressure to perform, because a base hit isn't going to hurt you when nobody's on, but it can if there are runners on. So I think the extra 5 seconds when runners on is really helpful too, to help with that anxiety.
And that's really true. And I'll ask this to both you guys. How do you feel about like the disengagement rule? Like, you only get 2 per at bat, and it just kind of, it feels like a very weird rule to me. Evan, I'll ask you this one first.
I feel that is a really weird rule, and I just feel overall it's very limiting, because you don't know the reason why they're doing the pickoff throws. And some people, they step off the road by accident, or sometimes they have a crisis going on. I feel that it shouldn't be limited to 2. It should not be limited to 2.
Okay, and then Nate, we'll finish it out with you.
I think it honestly just teaches pitchers to use their throwovers a lot better, because if you use up your 2 and you got a speedy runner on base, he can get whatever leadoff he wants. So I think it also limits pitchers just throwing over kind of to keep somebody back, send a message or whatever. I've been to games where pitcher will throw over 3-4 times in a row without throwing a single pitch. Pedro Baez, Cubs legend, notorious for that, especially in the 2016 playoffs. But I really just think it helps pitchers to use their pickoff throws better. It helps batters to call their timeouts more appropriately instead of calling timeout whenever they want. Yeah.
Absolutely. And hey, we didn't even get to talk about the bigger bases, but that's okay. Very well said, both of you guys. That's all the time we've got for. So let's throw it back to Vanessa and Chloe for some more sports updates.
Thanks, everyone. I look forward to seeing how these new rules will continue to change the MLB for the better or for worse. On the other hand, Loyola has had some better moments of its own. Amelia Villhauer is here with the best moments in Loyola sports from this year.
The 2022 to 2023 school year is coming to a close, and it has been an exciting year for the Ramblers. And we can't end the season without looking back at all the achievements that Loyola University Athletics has accomplished in the past year. Starting off strong, this was Loyola's first year in the A10 conference, and we had a killer start to the season thanks to the men's and women's cross-country teams. Both teams earned 9 all-conference selections, and they won the men's and women's team titles at the A10 cross-country championships. These amazing accomplishments marked the first titles in the A10 conference ever for Loyola. Way to go, Ramblers. Moving on to the men's volleyball team that had a season filled with back-to-back wins. They had an overall record of 21-7 and had a 10-game winning streak and almost remained undefeated at home besides one loss against McKendree University. At the end of the season, Coach John Hoxha was named the 2023 MIVA Coach of the Year, and 6 of the players took home all league honors. Last, but certainly not least, is the women's volleyball team and the amazing season they had that made history because they collected the most wins the program has had in the past 20 years with a total of 25. They won the A10 championship and went on to compete in the NCAA tournament for the 6th time in team history. That's a wrap on this season for the Ramblers, and hopefully next year brings in even more success for Loyola. For Rambler Sports Locker, I'm Amelia Villhauer.
Thanks, Amelia. Some truly amazing moments this season, and I'm lucky to be a part of some of those and make some of my own. On a personal note, I'd like to quickly add my favorite memory from the season. I'm honored to have traveled with my RSL crew to Brooklyn. There, I got to cover the men's basketball team's first appearance in the Atlantic 10 tournament. Reporting from the Barclays Center was a dream. More than that, I received amazing learning experiences. My team and I dealt with less than ideal circumstances like hotel issues and technical difficulties, but nonetheless, we figured it out and put on a great show for the people from the Big Apple.
Out of all of my RSL memories, I'd have to say that having the chance to cover the Cubs opening day game at Wrigley Field tops my list. Reporting in the field and having my day one field producer Lucas with me was an unforgettable experience and really just made me reminisce on how far we've come. As a Sox fan, the energy in Wrigleyville was unmatched, and the entire experience really reminded me exactly why I love what I do.
That must have been an amazing time. As a Chicago native, I know that the energy is unlike any others, and I'm so glad you got to be a part of the action. Above all, as a new blur on the block myself, RSL has brought some of my closest friendships, and I'm honored to finish off this season co-anchoring with a new best friend.
And I wouldn't have wanted to finish off my junior year alongside anyone else. I'm so lucky to know all of you and for all of the wonderful relationships RSL has brought me.
And on that heartwarming note, that wraps up this episode of Rambler Sports Locker.
I'd like to bring out our RSL crew to help me send it off for the last time this season. To stay up to date on all things Rambler Sports, be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Loyola RSL and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
From all of us here at Rambler Sports Locker, I'm Vanessa Hoxha.
And I'm Chloe Morrissey.
Have a great summer, everyone. We'll see you next fall, and don't forget to turn off the lights.